It's warmed up a bit now. We're about 13 degrees Celsius, which is relatively balmy compared to where we've been the last few months. And we can finally deliver on Aid's promise from a few episodes ago of trying to fix this horrible little well that we have in here above the engine bay cover. Now, the way we're going to do this is almost definitely not the right way to do it. The problem is we don't actually know what the right way is. We've thought of some worse things that we could do, like we could just fill the whole thing with Bondo or whatever, but that feels even worse than the approach that we're taking, which is vaguely similar to what we did on the front. On the front, we used a whole bunch of open cell foam. On here, we're instead going to try using some adhesive, expanding sticky foam that's going to go in here. Now, the idea is that the open cell foam we had on the front didn't attach very well. It was kind of a nightmare to hold in place, and frankly, the fact that it stayed on this long, personally, I think is a miracle. But we're going to try and prevent some of the problems that we had with that with this instead. So we're going to go over the whole top of this with this expanding foam, sand it back as much as we need to make the engine bay cover fit as it opens and it pivots forward, because it kind of cuts into some of this void a little bit. And then once that's all done, we're going to skim over it with filler, and hopefully we get something that looks vaguely presentable once we're done. While our big mess of foam up on the roof cures and gets down to a point where we might be able to sand it back a bit later, we're going to work on another problem that we've had with these little side pods ever since we first put them in, which is at the back of it, the metal work that was on the body is not very straight. So we're going to try and take up some of the gap. We've got a little piece of the same 4mm rod that we've been putting on a lot of the panel edges and things around the car just to give it that nice, safe radius that we need legally. We're going to put some more of it just underneath the lip there. So we're going to pop this panel out, tack this rod in place, and then we're going to kind of backfill with like Bondo or something. Kind of similar idea to what we're doing up the top, right? We're just kind of taking up a gap, filling in the well behind it, and hopefully making it a lot more cosmetically appealing. I'm also going to just take this opportunity to address a couple of comments we've had. We've had loads and loads of people saying, aren't these just going to pop out when you're driving? And I can say that with a hand underneath pushing it out from the inside, it's actually not very easy to pop out. And to be fair, even if that is a risk, we can always just bend these little metal clips out a little bit more aggressively. But to be honest, it's pretty well in there, right? These don't come out easy. At the minute, I can actually get fingers in behind and pry it out, but even that's relatively hard work. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease, because it definitely did for mine.
So you can see I've made a start moulding some of our pink abomination that we've put onto the roof of the car. Now, I've been compressing this down just by pushing it in some places like this, because we don't want the big air bubbles and voids when we cut this down. We want this to be as firm as possible going across, and obviously at the moment it is very, very spongy, lots of big air voids in there, so we want to try and avoid, pardon the pun, that. So I've been using a hammer as well just to go over and flatten this down. Now, across the back, to take the excess off where it comes up here, I've been just using a Stanley blade and just cutting through the skin and tearing it away, and that's been coming off really nicely. Now, it is also tearing the paint off. We probably should have stripped the paint before we put this on. If you're doing this, don't. Just get your metal the right shape anyway, but if you need to, you should definitely take the paint off and just bond it directly to the metal. But I think I hope we're going to get away with this. Well, it's just started to rain, so we've had to cover the car up because we don't want any water getting on that foam. It is extremely porous, but it is looking a lot better at the moment. So, whilst I've been doing that, Chris has been making up the frame for our other side pod door. This is the one I made up quite some time ago, and given we had some success recently not managing to warp a panel when we did the back part of the front arches, we're going to have another go doing this. Now, we've got this cut out. We made a template off this one, as you can see, and we've transferred it onto a sheet of steel. Cut this out, weld it on, and hopefully by the time we're done, the rain stopped and we can put something on the foam on the back of the car. resin's cured pretty well overnight. It's not completely there yet, but before we get it all the way firm, we want to take off this little dam. We don't need this anymore, so we can peel this off from both sides, and hopefully with it being a little bit tacky still, although it's not actually flowing, we'll be able to get this off in one piece.
It's quite strict.
Okay, definitely not one piece. Well, I've got to say, that was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. I thought we were going to be pulling this off in pieces. Well, more than 2 pieces anyway. So the rest of this needs to cure before we can sand at all. We really don't want to be doing anything with this whilst it's still a little bit soft. And as you can see, it's still a little bit sticky along the back edge where the dam was, but that should all come off relatively easily once it's cured a little bit more, because the stuff that's thicker where it was in the dam is still very, very soft. The nice thin stuff up here is doing pretty well. So we'll give this another couple of hours and try and finish off something else. We're going to fix up these 2 panels just above the access holes, where we've reshaped them slightly because this one in particular was very wavy all the way across. So I've just dished it in a little bit to take out some of those lumps so we don't need to use as much body filler on it. And I've done the same on the other side. The other one was actually already A, a little bit flatter, and B, a little bit dipped, so it wasn't too bad to make them roughly similar. There is still a little bit of a kick up just on the inside edge, but again, it's the same on the other side, so I'm not too worried about it. So we're going to put some Bondo across here, but first I'm going to take off all of this paint where we're going to put the Bondo down, and I'm going to scuff this up way more than I did last time, because over here on the arch you can see where a lot of this has flaked off. Now this went on a little bit thicker than I actually thought it did. I was pretty convinced I was putting a really, really thin layer, like just over where the imperfections are, and actually this part of the car is almost perfect, but still has probably 1 to 1.5 mil of filler just in this area, which I'm pretty sure I wasn't aware that I was doing at the time, but you can see where there's, well, I can see anyway, where there's lots of little imperfections, and I suspect I've just gone over and over and over, time and time again, trying to get rid of these little imperfections. It's layered it up, and that's probably, well, you can see there's multiple layers of it up there. That's probably led to the expansion when there's moisture got into different layers over the winter where it wasn't sealed, and that's why this is all cracked and popped off. And it's done it in a few other places on the bonnet as well, so we definitely need to get all of this done and probably somehow seal this sooner rather than later. Checking the clearance on our newly added foam means we're going to have to take the engine cover on and off quite a few times, and there is another job that we can do at the same time, and that is fitting our second gas ram. Now this is the old one that we had on, that we built it around, and unfortunately I thought I had a second one of these. I don't. I only have a slightly longer one. Well, I have 3 of these and 1 of these. So we've installed one on the other side, and we're going to see what the range of motion is like with this longer, potentially more powerful ram pushing it further round. I'm hoping the hinge is going to stop out on the top edge, and it's not just going to push it all the way around into the top of the new roof section, or the roof foam, as it were. If it does, we're going to have to move some pivots around, and I really don't want to do that.
Punch the window out.
Last time we did this, we didn't have the window in, did we?
Indeed. Okay, actually not too bad. It's the bit that I thought was going to be in the way that is in the way, so I'm not too concerned about that right now. Yeah.
Go up a bit more, up a bit more, up a bit more, up a bit more. Yeah, it's just this one side over here.
Yeah.
I might just try and trim that off.
Cool.
Now. Okay, clearance is enough that you can probably get out now.
Oh, my mic's caught.
Oh no!
We're good.
Oh. Yeah, you wouldn't have got out of the gap before. You alright? Marginal success? Well, we might have a solution for long-term use, not just for testing. I've taken a P-clip and drilled it out so it takes an M8 bolt. That's what's on the back end of the little ball joint that the gas rams fit into, and I've just bolted that on inside here. taken the other one out, and hopefully this will close. It's sitting a little bit over that way. It's a much stronger gas ram than we had before, as we know, so it is pushing it across this way, but by the time we put a second one on this side, that will hold this down really nicely. There's a very positive pressure holding it down into the back of the car, and then when we lift it up, it still goes up quite nicely. Now we've got the second gas ram in, this works really... This works really, really nicely. Unfortunately, the P-clip solution doesn't quite work because it pops out the inside edge. But when we put this back on, it will actually work. So please hold. So now we can see it operating. And it has a really positive lock as it pushes down, and it doesn't move around like we've had before, where it kind of slips side to side as you lower it when it was being skewed off to one side. So that has solved exactly the problem. Unfortunately, the P-clips are going to have to be welded in, but for now they will do whilst we deal with the front edge.
Now that we've got both gas struts in, the engine bay cover lifts up nice and symmetrically. It doesn't like kink over to one side as the stresses all go off one way, which means we can open it up now, and we've actually found that with all this together, it clears the whole way across quite nicely, which means we don't have to do any more adjusting to the foam, we don't have to like sand it back or anything.
We do need to probably weld that on.
I think we might need to, yeah, it's possible that we need to weld on one of our gas strut mounts, but mechanically, the whole thing's pretty much fine. So while Aid recovers from the giggling fit he's currently stuck in, I'm going to start mixing up some Bondo, and we're going to start hiding the sins across the top of the car here. So that was the easy part that turned out to be very, very hard, but thankfully the part that we thought would be hard turned out very easy. Getting the Bondo on here we predicted to be a bit of a nightmare. We thought the foam and the resin would kind of be too high in a few places, we'd have to sand it all back and build it all back up and everything. But as it turned out, the foam and resin were low enough all the way across that we could just Bondo straight over the top, and that all went down really, really nice and easy. Of course, it's quite ugly at the minute. It was still soft when we were testing the motion of the engine bay cover, so it's like snagged and snarled up a lot of the surface there. But for the most part, like structurally speaking, like it's all there, it's all sound. Obviously, we need to do some refinishing, but that's mostly pretty good. The other thing that we were a bit worried about is we thought that as the engine bay cover comes up, because of the way the pivot points and everything work, we thought that we'd actually have to put like a dip across the Bondo here for the front edge of the cover to come into. Turns out we don't have to do that either. So really kind of wins all round on this part. So we're going to let this set some more, get back to it tomorrow maybe, or maybe in a few days once it's properly hardened, and do a proper finishing pass to make it as pretty as the front one. Well, that wraps up this episode of PedalBox. I hope you've enjoyed watching us struggle with all this stuff. If you want to buy us a new tub of Bondo, because we have used quite a lot today, you can jump on patreon.com/pedalboxshow and support us there from as little as $1 a month. Every level of support gets a bit of discount at our merch store at shop.pedalbox.show, where you can buy one of the snazzy beanie hats or hoodies that I'm not wearing today. Now feel free to like the video if you like what we've done. I'm not sure why you would, but just in case. If you don't like what we've done, jump in the comments and let us know a better way that we could have done this, because we desperately wish that we knew of one. Also, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. We've been knocking out about an episode every week for quite a while now, so there's always a good supply of fresh suffering of us for you to enjoy. And as always, we'll see you next time.